Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to this program. Tonight, we'd like to talk about the saga that's going on of Triple C, the country's main opposition party. Ever since the August election, the party has pushed the self-destruct button. And there is a cartoon by one of the local papers depicting the scenario in Triple C. In the foreground, we can see the Triple C combi with its yellow colors and taken over by the three individuals who are now the rotating presidents, as you can see there in the front. And the picture, or rather the poster of Nelson Chamisa in the front. And of course, the vehicle itself has absolutely no wheels and it's resting on bricks. And the conductor of the combi is shouting that they just need one more Asara to go. And in the cartoonist depicted the glum-faced Zimbabwean public. And in the background is the more sleek, more modern blue bus depicting Nelson Chamisa and his new political party, whose color is going to be blue. Benjamin, welcome to this program.
Hi. Thank you for having me, and to our viewers, thank you for joining us. So what I see from this picture broadly is Zimbabwe is constantly in election mode. And, looking at more in depth to the picture, as you can see, Triple C it's just a shell, basically going nowhere. It's kind of sad. We have been here for the past 43 years, and we have been calling one Asara, and actually we are not going anywhere. You can put even 10 people in there and still nothing will happen, because there's no movement, basically. And unfortunately, what I would like to dwell upon is, as you can see, the impoverished people there, all clothes torn, faces looking, as if it's doom and gloom. People are not happy, but at the same time, they are also waiting to go where, is the question that we need to answer. Why are we doing this to ourselves as a nation, as a people? I could understand these guys, they are inside their shell and they're all smiles because they stand to gain something. What are we standing to gain by standing, I think it's a bus stop, to say let's go for another election? As you can see, the number plate there says 2028. We're already gearing for another election. We were in another one here. It was rigged. It was flawed. It did not even pass any standard that was set by any organization. Even our own standards, it did not pass. So why are we perpetuating ourselves, in this suffering? This is my question, where I don't understand. Even if you were to hop onto the blue nice looking bus. It doesn't make any sense because the yellow bus was being driven by the same person that is driving the blue one. And most probably, when it gets to the same position there or a little bit further, it will break down as well because the elections will be rigged. So I really don't understand. I don't know what are your thoughts as well?
Well, I think to start with, it is important to point out that the yellow combi was being driven by Nelson Chamisa, and he assured the people of Zimbabwe that Triple C was going to win 2023 elections, win big, he said. And as we all know, ZANU-PF actually rigged those elections, and they're still in power. And one has got to ask, why did Nelson Chamisa mislead the people, lie to them? And the answer is very simple. MDC, which was the original party that Nelson Chamisa and all those people, at least Nube and Tendai Biti, who are now the co-drivers of that combi now, they were all in the MDC. They failed to implement even one meaningful democratic reform. And when he formed the Triple C, it was abandoned MDC. And people were assured that this time Triple C would deliver the change that the people wanted. It did not. And so we are repeating the same thing. And I think the main problem here to point out here is that the people themselves need to learn. You know, they are the ones who are gullible, easily fooled. And like you also pointed out, this is a situation that is repeating itself. The blue bus, supposedly to be driven by Nelson Chamisa, yes, it is not going to have all the individuals who are, because some of the individuals are now left in the yellow combi, just as when the Triple C was launched, some of the individuals who were in MDC were left in MDC alliance. And so some people will be left in the yellow, but still, Nelson Chamisa and a number of those around him will be in the blue bus. The same individuals who participated, who were in the GNU, some of them, who were in the Triple C and have left Triple C with Chamisa to be in the blue bus. The same problems that beset MDC will now did beset Triple C and now will beset the blue bus, i.e., corrupt and incompetent leader. That is at the heart of the problems that the opposition has faced. The people need to realize that the opposition have failed to implement even one meaningful democratic change in the last 23 years. And to keep on hoping that the same failed, corrupt, incompetent individual will deliver change is being naive. And as long as the people themselves continue to support a corrupt and incompetent opposition that is not going to implement reforms, then there will be no change. Some people have even gone to the extent of calling the Zimbabwe's opposition, at least as it is presently constituted, ZANU-PF Team B. There is some truth in that. They had the opportunity to implement reforms. They failed to implement even one reform. To keep on believing that this time they will do so is being naive, to say the least. And I think the main problem now is with the electorate itself. The Greeks, whose legacy of democracy the world has, even those 2,500 years ago, realized that for democracy to work, government of the people, for the people, by the people, for it to work, the people must be educated, informed, and understand the issues that affects the nation. And they must have the diligence to hold those in power to account. Our biggest problem in Zimbabwe has been that the electorate has given up on the right to learn, to be educated, and to think for themselves, and then to hold those in power to account. This mentality of Chamisa Chete Chete is classical of somebody who has given up the right to think for themselves. In his book, Animal Farm, George Orwell depicted that mentality in the form of Boxer the horse. Boxer failed to learn anything. And then he ended up giving up the process of learning. He could not formulate anything comprehensive, meaningful on his own. So he ended up adopting this motto, Comrade Napoleon is always right. Essentially giving up his right to learn and giving up his right to think for himself and to hold those in positions of power to account. And in the case of Zimbabwe, we have got a lot of people out there who have not only given up their right to think for themselves and to hold those in power to account, they have come back with an aggressive position where they will not tolerate anybody holding those in power to account. One of the problems that we have faced in Zimbabwe is a situation where if you criticize or point out the fact that CCC have failed, Chamisa has been corrupt and incompetent, one faces aggression from ordinary Zimbabweans. We have now elevated Chamisa and company to the position of demigods who cannot do anything wrong and therefore should not be criticized. The fact that CCC achieved nothing and the people participated in the 2023 elections only to give ZANU-PF legitimacy is at the heart of our problem. Their euphoria in support of Chamisa now with this blue bus is no different. This is a problem of the cult of personality. And unless we solve this, I believe that we'll be going round and round in circles. Benjamin, you
sorry,
can your closing remark on that issue.
I do agree with you. You know, how does this differentiate us from ZANU-PF, where you say if you ask questions, you have gone against leadership? You know, people have gone to an extent of saying Chamisa does no wrong. Just the same way where ZANU-PF blames all their wars on sanctions or on outside factors. And then for the people, I would ask, you know, I genuinely want to ask each and every one that is listening right now to say, what has changed from all the previous elections? Okay, fine. Back then, let's look at the most recent election, the 2023 election. What has changed that we are gearing up for another election? I don't see any change. ZANU-PF will just rig the elections. Whether the bus looks beautiful and has changed color from yellow to blue, the fact still remains. ZANU-PF will rig the 2028 elections and thus prolong our own suffering as we have to go through another 5 years of ZANU-PF. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Why are we standing by the bus stop to say we want to go to 2028 elections, knowing fully well this is what is going to happen? We need to stop this madness, this this senseless action of just continuously going through elections and then start crying the very next day when ZEC announces the election results, because they will be rigged. We really have to stop this. I really think that as individuals, let's not think about the political parties for now. Let's think as individuals. What do you stand to gain from participating in an election that once you were promised that this time around we are going to win big, this time around they are not going to rig the elections, and they did exactly that? We ought to stop doing this to ourselves and rightfully look at the picture. This is exactly what it looks like for the individual. People are suffering. People are suffering. There is no basic, just to get through a day is very difficult. Now we are gearing for another election only to continue with the suffering that we are exposed to today. So I would like every individual, don't look at the parties. Think of what you stand to gain, what difference is going to be brought about from participating in an election that is so flawed that even all the observer missions failed to give it credibility, failed to give it half a mark. I think we are letting ourselves down by just foolishly following and saying that Chamisa is right, ZANU-PF is right. I think we are owed much more than what we are being handed at the present moment. That's what I personally have to say.
Thank you, Benjamin. I was just going to close tonight's discussion with this ongoing story that another 45,000 Chirezi villagers to be evicted. So the saga of eviction is continuing. What I would like to say today to add to this story is that I'm disappointed by some of the Zimbabweans out there who have read into this eviction as, yeah, ZANU-PF is now turning back on those people who voted for the party. I do not think so. I think ZANU-PF is evicting these people, even in those areas, in those constituencies where ZANU-PF won. Because when you have got rigged elections, the result that is announced is not necessarily the result, the true result. And if, as we have already been pointing out, that these elections, these 2023 elections, were rigged, it is irresponsible to suggest that these people would have voted for ZANU-PF. My take on this is that ZANU-PF knew that these people did not vote for ZANU-PF, or most of these people did not vote for ZANU-PF, and therefore then is going after them to punish them. When you have got a regime like we have in Zimbabwe, of this ZANU-PF regime, that has got the power to punish the people, it will punish them. Make no mistake about it. And I believe what Mnangagwa is doing here is punishing the people, reminding them that he has got the power and is flexing his muscle and is punishing the people and keeping everybody on their toes. In Shona, we have got a saying that Mvandiripo afanele kugowa fuma yenaka ya vamwe, because Mvandiripo is like an imposter who has seized power, as somebody who has seized power in this case here, rigging election is seizing power. And now Mnangagwa is distributing the nation's wealth like an imposter. He will never distribute it to those who own it, the real owners, because he is an imposter. And I think people need to realize that and stop blaming people that it's because you voted for ZANU-PF. In one breath, you accept ZANU-PF rigged the elections. In the next breath, you want to blame the people that they voted for ZANU-PF. I think that has got to stop. Benjamin, what do you have to say to this story?
I agree with you. It's retribution. When you look at the actual figures over the altered figures, the rigged figures, you have to punish the people, because it's very difficult to always try and balance out these numbers. And ZANU-PF knows they are very unpopular, despite whatever they try and come up with. So I agree with you. It's retribution to say you guys voted otherwise for us. We are going to show you one or two things that the next time, ZANU-PF has got it's saying to say Musarasi Kagbara. So this is exactly what they are teaching, they're teaching the people. So it's retribution. Then my question now still remains, why are we subjecting ourselves to this fighting between, these two political parties who are taking us nowhere? We are just being subjected to all the, the ruthlessness. They always say when elephants fight, the grass suffers. You and me are the grass, and we are getting tramped on. But still, we are there by the bus stop, wanting to catch a ride to 2028. Oh, this got to stop. This has to stop. We have to ask ourselves some of these fundamental questions, to think for ourselves. You know, it doesn't matter. Sometimes being on the unpopular side is a very good side. Let's stick to our guns and ask some of these fundamental questions. What has changed that you want to lead us into another election? You promised us. Why did you not deliver from the promises of yesteryears? 23 years, the triple CMDC has been there. What have they delivered? They have delivered absolutely nothing, but just claiming that this time we are going to do things different. How are you going to do things differently when ZANU-PF has got all the hands? You know, I fail to understand. I fail to understand. I think we are selling ourselves short. We are shooting ourselves in the foot, and we are spiting ourselves at the same time. Unfortunately, this is exactly what it is. It may not be popular, but if we continue on this trajectory, come 2028, it's going to be repeated all over again. That's what I have to say in my conclusion.
Thank you very much, Benjamin, and thank you very much for the listeners. My last remark, my parting remark to today is to again re-emphasize the point that if we are serious about bringing about change, we really have to address the issue of educating and being knowledgeable and being able to think for ourselves. Democracy does not work when you have got an electorate that has got the mentality of boxer the horse. Comrade Napoleon is always right. Chamisa Chete Chete. That is the mentality of somebody who doesn't want to think. And that is the mentality that has landed us in this mess. And if we're going to get out, we have to learn. We have to think for ourselves. And like you correctly pointed out there, Benjamin, to ask the question, what is it that has changed? We can't keep on repeating the same mistake. And that is exactly what we have been doing. 43 years after independence, and we failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections. That should be food for thought for anybody out there. Why is it that we can't even hold free, fair, and credible elections? And the truth is, and until we hold free, fair, and credible elections, Zimbabwe is not going to change. Zimbabwe will continue drifting into the abyss. Again, thank you very much, Benjamin, and thank you to the listeners, and good night.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for to the listeners for joining us.